gypsy nurses and those with gypsy hearts looking to get into the travel nursing industry. Welcome to Travel Nursing Insider. I'm Angelina, and I am a former senior travel nurse recruiter of over 5 years. I worked for a few different agencies, and I wore many different hats within the agencies. So I'm here to help guide you through the travel nursing industry and help you to navigate this sometimes confusing and overwhelming journey that you're on. So today's video is the third video in a series that I'm doing on negotiation techniques. And today I will be discussing negotiating guaranteed hours. So what I mean by that is how to make sure that you are paid for all of your contract hours, whether you are canceled by the facility or not. So let's get into it. There are two types of cancellations. So the first type of cancellation is a nurse cancellation, when the nurse calls in sick or just can't work that shift for whatever reason, and the nurse is not paid when they cancel on their own. That was their choice. The agency's not getting paid, and they can only pay the nurse when they work. And the other type of cancellation is the facility cancellation. So the hospital will cancel the nurse due to them just not needing the nurse, low census, or whatever reason it might be. Now, the hospital does work out a cancellation clause with the agency. So most hospitals are allowed to cancel their travelers for a certain amount of hours per contract, and they don't have to pay the agency at all for those hours. And other hospitals do guarantee all of their hours, so even if the nurse is canceled by them, they still pay the agency, and in which case the nurse should still get paid even if they don't work. When I was a travel nurse recruiter, I would rarely have nurses negotiate this topic with me. I would basically tell them what the hospital's cancellation clause was. So, the hospital writes into their contract that they can cancel the nurse for such and such hours per month or per contract, things like that. So I would tell them what it was and how our agency dealt with that, and most of the time they would kind of just go with it. However, I did work for one agency that did penalize the nurse when the hospital canceled them. So what they would do is they would have amount for the stipend that was calculated for all 13 weeks and divided by the amount of hours total that the nurse would work during that 13-week contract. So that was the hourly rate of the stipend. And if the nurse didn't work for a 12-hour shift within a pay period, then the agency would deduct that amount from the nurse's stipend. And, nurses would be pretty angry or annoyed about this, rightfully so. And what I had to tell them was that, yeah, we do that because we can't pay you when you don't work. However, you can make up the shift or work a PRN shift, and we'll reimburse you that money that we had to take away from you. I got a message a few weeks ago from one of my nurse friends, and she works in the OR, and she was asking me about negotiating guaranteed hours because she works the 7 to 3 shift, and in the OR specialty, when your surgery is over, you go home. So she is usually sent home before 3 when her shift is over. And she's not being paid when she's sent home, and she's actually being penalized out of her stipend because she's not working her full 40 hours. And what really hurt her was a few weeks ago when she picked up a shift for another nurse. She switched shifts, and she's working the 9 to 5 shift and was getting sent home way before 5 and was really penalized because she was very short on her hours, and it came out of her stipend. So when the guy came back, she demanded that he take his shift back, and she just didn't understand how he was living off of that. Well, he told her that he didn't really care when he was sent home because he had it written into his contract that he was guaranteed 40 hours a week, whether the hospital sends him home or not. So she is like, whoa, that's not in my contract. So she goes and talks to her recruiter about it, and her recruiter says, yeah, it's not in your contract. You didn't ask for 40 hours guaranteed, so we didn't write it in. And if you want that, you need to talk to your manager about that and have them approve it. So in an ideal world, she would have been guaranteed 40 hours a week, but she didn't know that she could negotiate this or even think about negotiating it. So the 40 hours guaranteed was not written into her contract. So I advised her to always have that written into her contract, especially since she's an OR nurse and she will be sent home early. So my friend, Miss Anonymous Nurse, is a fairly new travel nurse. She's been in the industry for about a year. So she only worked with one other agency before this who already just automatically guaranteed her hours. So in an ideal world, like I said, she would have already been guaranteed 100% of her hours, but not an ideal world, and she needs to stand up for herself and negotiate on behalf of herself so that she's not getting penalized and missing out on pay. So I told her that there are different ways that she could go about this, and also different ways that she might find that agencies deal with canceled shifts. So some agencies will just not pay her at all if she's canceled. Other agencies, like the agency she was with, would penalize her, so they would deduct the cost of the stipend, health benefits, things like that out of her weekly stipend for those hours that she missed for that week. And other agencies just guarantee a full 40 hours a week or 36 hours a week, whatever it is. So I kind of gave her some pointers on how she could go about negotiating in the future. That number one, in order for them to extend her, she needed to demand that she has those 40 hours written into her contract. And for any shifts going forward, she needs to at least try to get 100% guaranteed hours for all 40 hours per week. And if that wasn't possible, then she could try to maybe accept a lower hourly rate in exchange for them giving her a guaranteed 40 hours a week. Or she could also flip it around to the hospital if there is a cancellation clause written into the contract by the facility that the agency would agree to pay her a higher hourly rate because they have that cancellation clause in there, and she won't be guaranteed that she's going to get her 40 hours per week. So they would have to pay her a higher hourly rate in order for her to work for them. So negotiating guaranteed hours. If you didn't know you could negotiate this, I hope you feel empowered, and I hope that you know now that you can, and that you 100% definitely should at least try to get it written into your contract that your hours are guaranteed. For those of you who still have more questions, I hope that you email me at travelnursinginsider@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I will leave the contact information for those social media sites below. And also questions and comments in the comment section is always appreciated. And stay tuned. My next video coming out next Friday will be on negotiating special rates for any extra time that you work, and also special rates for overtime. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of your sacrifices, and thank you so much for all that you do. Bye.